Dear learners, welcome to the session on group behavior. The learning objective of the session are to understand about the meaning of group behavior, to know about the importance of understanding group behavior, to understand the meaning of norms, its types, ways to reinforce group norms, characteristics and functions of group norms. And the last objective is to be aware of certain group behaviors. Let us start understanding about what is group behavior. Behavior is the way in which one acts or conducts oneself, especially towards others. Group behavior represents the conduct of group members towards each other, being a member of a group. It is important to understand that the group behavior is governed by certain external and internal factors. External factors relates to the group's explicit rules and regulations as well as the implicit norms which form organization culture. Whereas the internal factors of the group behavior relates to the individual personalities of the group members. The discussion on group behavior, however, relates predominantly to the influence of group rule, regulations and norms on the behavior of the group members. Group behavior in organizations tends to follow the organization norms and rules wherein the employees are expected to be disciplined, follow orders and work to the requirement of the organization rather than their own whims and fancies. Thus, organizations are collection of people in groups which require the members to conform to the laid down or explicit and informal or implicit rules of behavior. If we take into account the extremity of following the group norms and rules, then armed forces is a right example, wherein the rules and norms are tightly followed. As in case of armed forces, discipline is the core culture, and as such, there is huge expectation of the superiors regarding conformity to rules and norms by their subordinates. However, on the other extreme are the startups, wherein the rules and norms are not tight as these yet to unfold fully and yet to get established. There is least rigidity in terms of the rules, regulations and norms. Most organizations fall between these two extremes wherein the employees are encouraged, persuaded and even ordered to conform to the norms of the group with some extent of freedom being allowed to exercise their independence. Now comes, why is it important to understand about group behavior? Dear learners, it is important to understand the group behavior because group behavior can have positive as well as negative implications on the achievement of organizational goals. Positive implications of group behavior on the achievement of organizational aims and objectives can be achieved through associating group identity with the achievement of those aims and objectives. So group's pride, being member of the group, needs to be enhanced for positive implications of the group behavior. Group behavior can also have negative implications on a wide range of organizational processes. This can be expressed through resistance to change, lack of commitment to organizational aims and objectives, preferring individual objectives over organizational objectives. It is critically important for organizational managers to adopt a proactive approach in terms of impacting group behavior with positive implications on the achievement of organizational aims and objectives. Now I shall be taking up advantages of group behavior. This is important to understand that for the desired group behavior, which is expected to be productive and so profit making, employers pay for the work of the employees. Discipline around the work behavior of the employees is needed through explicit rules and regulations and through implicit norms, as this saves organizations from wastage of resources like time and energy and gives direction to the fulfillment of organization goals in the best possible way. In the absence of rule, regulations and norms, there is high probability of deviation from righteous behavior resulting in chaos, which may become detrimental to the very survival of an organization. So, groups' rules or policies are framed with deliberate actions of brainstorming at the top management level, and this varies from organization to organization according to the vision, mission and goal of the management or management at the top level. Now let us understand about group norms. My dear learners, group norms are the informal guidelines of behavior which usually develop gradually and informally as group members interact, experience, understand and learn as to what behaviors are necessary for the group to function effectively. Though not rigid, but these group norms are expected to be followed by every group member, as these give collective identification to the culture of a group. Group norms provide order and conformity to group activities. The examples of group norms may include inviting for high tea to all group members by a peer who has got a promotion, offering sweets to co-workers in case of some professional achievement, adhering to the norm of being on time for a meeting, wearing formal dress in case of making some presentation, etc. So group norms give consistency in behavior of the group members, and this consistency helps to render predictability of the group's overall behavior. Predictability reduces chaos, ambiguity and conflict. Group norms can be classified into two types: behavior norms and work norms. Behavior norms relates to the routine behavior of people at workplace. For example, exchanging pleasantries on meeting each other, wishing good luck to colleagues, showing respect to others' viewpoint, not interrupting others while one is speaking, joining each other on time, etc. Now, work norms are the implicit work behaviors which regulate the performance and productivity of individual members. Work norms usually put an acceptable level of productivity within reasonable tolerances so that comparatively poor performers can also be accommodated and that they do not become a burden on their peers. Workers who perform below the lower acceptable level, that is not going as per the work norm, they are informally advised to match up with others. And in case of overly productive workers who produce more is considered as much a deviation from the norms as a worker who is under producer. Such rate busters are also informally advised to match with the group productivity level, as their overcapacity raises the expectation of the management, which may not be within the capacity of everyone with normal life conditions. So there are certain ways to reinforce group. Reinforcement of the group norms depends upon the members' willingness to abide by the norms. This willingness comes from the perception that adherence to the norms will facilitate goals achievement, both personal and organizational, and shall ensure group cohesiveness. Reinforcement of the group norms can also take place through certain thoughtful actions like rewarding people who show compliance with group norms, for example, appreciations, like star employee of the week or by making them team leader for a week or so. Negative actions like verbal warnings to those who do not conform, and in extreme situations taking stern actions can also help reinforcing the group norms. Now let us move on to the characteristics of group norms. According to Hackman, work group norms may be characterized by at least 5 factors. First one is norms summarizes and simplify group influence processes. That is, they denote the processes by which groups regulate and regularize members' behavior. Norms apply only to behavior, not to private thoughts and feelings. That is to say, although norms may be based upon thoughts and feelings, they cannot govern them. That is, private acceptance of group norms is unnecessary. Only public compliance is needed. Norms are generally developed only for behaviors that are viewed as important by most group members. Next, norms usually develop gradually, but the processes can be quickened by members' wish. Norms usually are developed by group members as the needs arises, such as when a situation occurs that requires new ground rules for members in order to protect group's integrity. So these can also be their formulation can also be speed up by in case of the need or in case of a certain situation. All norms do not apply to all members. Some norms, for example, apply only to young initiates, such as getting coffee for someone, whereas others are based on seniority, gender, race, or economic class. Now comes functions group norms. According to Philman, work group norms serve 4 functions in organizational settings. The first one is norms facilitate group survival. When a group is under threat, norms provide a basis for ensuring goal-directed behavior and rejecting deviant behavior that is not purposeful to the group. This is essentially a circle the wagons phenomenon. The next is norms simplify expected behaviors. Norms tell group members what is expected of them, what is acceptable and allow members to anticipate the behavior of their fellow group members and to anticipate the positive and negative consequences of their behavior. Norms help avoid embarrassing situations. By identifying acceptable and unacceptable behaviors, norms tell group members when a behavior or topic is damaging to another member. For example, a norm against swearing signals group members that such actions would be hurtful to someone in the group and should be avoided. Norms help identify the group and express its central values to others. What it means? It means that norms concerning clothes, languages, mannerism and so forth help tell others who belong to the group and in some cases what the group stands for. Norms often serve as rallying points for group members. Certain group behaviors which I am right now going to discuss includes groupthink, group shift, de-individuation, social loafing, social facilitation, obedience, etc. Let's see each one of these one by one to understand the various group behaviors. The first one is groupthink. Groupthink is a phenomenon related to decision making wherein a group of individuals reaches a consensus without critical reasoning or evaluation of the alternatives to be identified in the decision-making process. The consensus so developed is not critically analyzed. Groupthink is based on a common desire not to upset the balance of a group of people by avoiding any dissent or conflict. Since in such a situation, individuals' critical thinking is de-emphasized or frowned upon, employees may self-censor and not suggest alternatives for fear of upsetting the status quo. Any dissenters in the group who may attempt to introduce a rational argument are pressured to come around to the consensus and may even be censored. Now, what is the impact of groupthink? Groupthink, no doubt, a negative phenomenon that results in faulty and uninformed thinking and decision making. Some of the problems it can cause include blindness to potentially negative outcomes, failure to listen to people with dissenting opinions, lack of creativity, lack of preparation to deal with negative outcomes, ignoring important information, inability to see other solutions, not looking for things that might not yet be known to the group. Now comes the next group behavior, that is group shift. Group shift is a phenomenon in which there is shift in the initial positions of individual members of a group towards a more extreme position influenced by the extreme stand taken by the group. This is because when people are in groups, they make decisions about risk differently from when they are alone. The extremity of the decision depends upon the overall stand of the majority of the group. The decision made tends to be even more risk averse if the group members' opinion are risk averse on average, and even more risk seeking if the group members' opinions are risk seeking on average. In a group, generally, people are likely to exhibit a slight preference toward riskier decision as the shared risk makes the individual risk less. There are varying explanations that attempt to provide a reason as to why group shift occurs. The foremost is about being in the group diffuses the responsibility. A diffusion of responsibility throughout the group seems to give members of these groups a free rein to act as they see fit. Now comes the next group behavior. This is de-individuation. De-individuation is a phenomenon in which people engage in seemingly impulsive, deviant, and sometimes violent acts in situations in which they believe they cannot be personally identified being a part of a larger groups. This happens in a situation in which people cannot be individuated or isolated from others in crowds or on social media. People behave as de-individuated, as some individuated situations can reduce the personal accountability. This happens because people who are hidden within a group cannot be easily traced or blamed for their actions. People in groups often feel less individual responsibility for their behavior and may feel that they will be able to act with more anonymity. Thus, the effects of individuation are sometimes viewed as socially undesirable, for example, in case of rioting or mob lynching. Social loafing. This is another group behavior. Social loafing refers to the concept that people are prone to exert less effort when working collectively as a part of a group compared to performing a task alone. Social loafing is more evident in tasks where the contribution of each group member is combined into a group outcome, making it difficult to identify the contribution of a single person. Social loafing can be detrimental in workplaces when everyone does not put in their full amount of effort because they are part of a group. This can lead to reduced productivity. It states that the employees working in a group underperform a given task in comparison to their potential, ultimately hindering the group performance. This is because they develop a casual attitude towards the assigned responsibility by putting in their least contribution and thus relying upon the efforts of other team members' productivity. The concept of self-loafing or Ringelmann effect has denied a traditional belief that people tend to perform better when they work as a team. Ringelmann, a French engineer, carried out the rope pulling experiment. He discovered that when the participants were asked to pull the rope in groups of 2, 3 and 8 to pull the rope in groups of 2, 3 and 8, they put in fewer efforts as compared to when they were individually pulling the rope. Thus, Ringelmann came up with this concept of social loafing in the year 1913. Now comes obedience. Obedience is a form of social influence where an individual acts in response to a direct order from another individual who is usually an authority figure. It is assumed that without such an order, the person would not have acted in this way. Obedience is behavior change produced by the commands of authority. In other words, someone gives you a direct order or command and you comply with that order. Now, the next group behavior is conformity. Conformity is a type of social influence used to indicate agreement to the majority positions. This involves a change in belief or behavior in order to fit in with a group. This change is in response to the real group pressure. Conformity is also known as majority influence or group pressure. Now, there can be certain types of conformity. According to Kelman, there are 3 different types of conformity. These include compliance, internalization, and identification. Now, let's see what are these. Compliance occurs when an individual accepts influence because he hopes to achieve a favorable reaction from another person or group. He adopts the induced behavior because he expects to gain specific rewards or approval and avoids specific punishment or disapproval by conformity. It includes public conformity, not private conformity. Now comes internalization. Internalization occurs when an individual accepts influence because the content of the induced behavior, the ideas and actions of which it is composed, is intrinsically rewarding. He adopts the induced behavior because it is congruent with his own value system. Internalization always involves public and private conformity. A person publicly changes his behavior to fit in with the group while also agreeing with them privately as well. This is the deepest level of conformity. This is the deepest level of conformity wherein the beliefs of the group become part of the individual's own belief system. This means the change in behavior is permanent. Now comes identification. This occurs when an individual accepts influence because he wants to establish or maintain a satisfying self-defining relationship to another person or group. Individuals conform to the expectation of a social role. It is similar to compliance as there is no need to bring change in private opinion. Now comes the next group behavior. This is social facilitation. The phenomenon of social facilitation is about improving performance due to the presence of others. It is believed to be due to fear of evaluation or due to others, somebody's presence who is considered to be important. So my dear learners, the final takes of this lecture are: group behaviors is governed by rule, regulations and group norms. Interactions among members are primary to the functionality of any group. Without interactions, a group cannot be sustained for long. These are the interactions only which develops implicitly group norms and the culture of the organization, which subsequently re-strengthen the interactions. The group norms are no doubt significant in understanding the group behavior. Behavior of individuals get influenced by the presence of group. The influenced behavior outcomes can be thus termed as group behavior. There are many group behaviors like groupthink, group shift, social loafing, de-individuation and conformity, which a working professional must know, as these behaviors affect decision making process and overall dynamics and productivity of the group. Learners, this is all regarding this session on group behavior. Thank you.